in honor of 4/13, Homestuck's birthday coming up, I wanted to do a piece, and I wanted it to be something that was kind of, most of the things I like are more of the emotional, kind of slower pieces. So I wanted to do Vriska's Cobalt Thief, which is very different than most of her other themes, but it's really touching because it's very different and kind of has that kind of contrast so that she's a multifaceted character, etc. So I'm going to re-record this so that you guys can actually hear it with everything. As I had mentioned before the stream, I'd kind of programmed pianos, glocks, violin, cellos, bass off of an arrangement by Meta 1 off of the original composition for Colors and Mayhem Universe A by Ray McDougall. So major props to everyone. I would not have been able to do this as quickly as possibly without the arrangement being on MuseScore's website. That is free, so if you're a musician, you can find a lot of stuff there. That's great. So we're going to start with the sax part 1. I'm going to hopefully not mess it up this time. Okay. Dang it. I didn't record that at all, did I? That's so funny. Hopefully you heard that though, and I did have an original piece that 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 other sax instruments was a surprise. So yes, I did, before I fixed the sound issues, I had recorded both parts, and I was hoping that those would be live, but you heard the live part, so what I wanted to do next was, this is at a very raw stage. So what I wanted to do was, I wanted to go through a little bit of the process of how I take a piece from the raw recordings to something that's more presentable. What you will notice is in all these MIDIs, what I do is, you notice how there's different colors, and you can see the colors up here and down here. On the piano roll up in the top, you can see the closer to green or a lighter kind of green color it is, that means the quieter the note is. And then the closer to red, that means the louder the note is. When working from a sheet music software like MuseScore, it is possible to write in the dynamics like mezzo piano, mezzo forte, etc. But it's kind of difficult to have that human effect of how every note would be a little bit different. So I usually go through all the MIDI parts and make sure that there's some sort of like dynamic change. And then, H for humanize and Reaper will adjust the timing, the velocity, and the bias of the notes just a little bit. So I run that a few times. And I do that for all of the parts. So you can see as well that it's done for the Glocks. It is done for the violin. It is done for the bass, and it's even done for this cello part. The reason that this cello part is kind of locked down is because I'm using effects of a virtual instrument that's a demo, and it only lets me use it for 15 minutes. So I make the MIDI exactly as I want it, switch it to that demo VST, and then it should sound something like this. Let me see if I can put on solo for that, and solo for that. So what I like about that is that it's a bit more expressive than a lot of default kind of VSTs. Like, I do have some volume adjustments here, but it also kind of has its own natural, as the note's longer, it knows to drag that volume up a little bit. So what I would do is, if you notice up here at the top, I have my metronome, and if I were a perfect player, everything would be perfectly aligned, but what you will see is that I'm not a perfect player. So for example, at this measure, I think the issue is at the beginning, I kind of started a bit late, and then things kind of get back on track. But what I would need to do is I'd need to make sure that things are around in alignment. See this note here, it starts a little bit late and it ends a little bit late. So things don't have to be perfect, but it's usually better to clean things up a little bit. And especially when there are two parts playing, for example, here, it's super important that these are at the same tempo, or else it'll be very noticeable that they're going and they're not really aligned. So like, for example, right now, here, this part is kind of on time, or this part is a little bit late. So what I want to do is I kind of want to take this piece here, and with the S key, I can split that track, and then I can just drag it right over, and then I can just make sure that all of those are in alignment. What I would want to do here is I have a custom stretch marker, so I can go ahead and shrink that down. Stretch markers can be destructive, so they can warp the sound a bit, so you don't want to use them all the time, but they're pretty helpful in case you don't want to re-record stuff. So. And here's another place where, because they're just a little bit off, in this case, I think it's the second part. Well, actually, yeah, it's still the first part here that's really off, that's dragging it, and it makes it very noticeable that it's off. So what I'm going to do is I want to align it so that this part, I know this part needs to begin on the beat, That's going to go there. And then I reform that. And you can see down here that there's a lot of stuff that it's just not really working out super perfectly. So I'm going to just cheat a little bit here. And then cheat the other way. And when you have a lot of these short staccato notes like it's happening here, you really want to make sure that those are in alignment. Stutter effect. Played in a big band, Mobius TFS says, you get a stutter effect. Played in a big band where the sax section could never get in at the same time. No sax can play at the same time. So Robin Hood East notices that I am not a jazz saxophonist. I don't really have any formal training, but definitely when I was in school, everyone that I was listening to was kind of doing more of the classical thing. So that is why my vibrato, I try to make it very classical. It's not very jazzy. And so most of the pieces on my channel will, in fact, be more of the classical sound. And definitely for those of you who are just joining or who've been with us, I do have a few other covers. I did a cover of Carcat's theme. I did a cover of Air of Grief. And then I have a few older covers, but like you'll just have to go through my channel and find those out. I know that Carcat's theme and Air of Grief should be cards whenever this goes and is archived, so that should be fun. And I just wanted to keep on playing because I just really love the music. So let me see. I just want to keep on going through here and just making a few adjustments here and there to line things up. This is the part that will probably take quite a bit of time, but hopefully I haven't made too many mistakes. I mean, I probably have made a ton of mistakes, so I'll probably have to go through like note by note and just make sure that everything seems right. So what you might be hearing right there is some of the issues of having a little bit of distortion in the playback rate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to force this property to play at exactly 1 times the, and then here too, I think I want it to be, I guess I can't control it. And if it gets too bad, then I'll just do another recording so that I don't get any distortion effects. Oop, I don't want to do that for both of them. I just want to do that for this one. So I want to make sure that everything is right on beat. And as you can see here, I already know that that's going to be a little bit off, so I'm just going to nudge that back. And then I'm going to nudge these back. Oh, and here we go. So the distance between the notes is also an issue. And that's one of my major weaknesses. Making sure that the notes and the rest that are supposed to be associated with them are exactly the same length. I just cheat instead. And then here we're going to need to nudge these back. And it's not even like consistently off. It's like I'm off some places in one way and then it gets off the other way. Like I should work on that. See, like here, if I nudge this, it'll nudge the piece after too far. So I just want to pick that one piece and then remove that. And then here, this is getting, it starts off good and then it kind of gets too fast for the beat. So I want to check, is this item set? Nope, it's set at exactly 1 times the rate, so that's not an issue. So what I want to do is I want to go here and then just nudge this over, just cut and nudge. And then nudge that over, cut and nudge. And then reduce, cut, and then move. Good deal. And then here, the note is a little bit too long, so I'm just gonna stretch it down. I don't like to stretch things to be bigger. I usually like to cut and then move it if it's too big. But if it's too long, then I don't see as much distortion effects if I use stretch markers to reduce it, so I do use that. And here, I just want to, and sometimes it doesn't have to be perfect, but I have enough imperfections that I want this to be reasonable. Let me go back to the chat for just a moment. The speed buttons are still on chat. How does that work? How can you watch at a faster speed if you're live? Yeah, I think it's because you can go back to like the beginning of the stream and then go at 2x and to get caught up. I think that's what that's for. Air of Grief, if you missed it, Mitch K, it is on my channel. I didn't do like a live stream or anything for that, but it's just Homestuck, end of Act 6, S Collide, Air of Grief, sax cover, like you'll find it. Robin Hood E says, yeah, I'm in the same boat. Do I want to be a classical or jazz saxophonist? I will say both. I mean, obviously both are very different skill sets, and it's kind of like you just have to know like what you like and what you are really interested in. For me personally, jazz is like, I am far too old to be trying to learn jazz at this. I mean, you're never too old to be learning anything. Like, you could pick up something now, then become like a prodigy in 10 years. Who knows? But for me, it's like I'm already set in my ways, so it's really tough to try to get the jazz tonality. Let's see. Anything else? Mobius TFS. This is bringing back the memories. I need to get back into playing. I miss a lot. I would definitely, highly recommend getting back to playing. Like, I was in band until 10th grade, and then I quit until like several years after I graduated from college. So, you know, do the math, like 10th grade to several years after I graduated college. And then I decided, oh, I want to get back into playing. So I picked my sax back up from my parents' house, brought it back with me to, you know, where I was working. And I was like, do I want to practice like boring scales? And I said no. So I started doing video game music covers and of course covers from things like Homestuck. So I would not advise watching some of my older pieces, but if you do, you will be able to see that I've come, I think, a long way in comparison to what I have new. So I'm just going to keep on going through. That's good. This is good, but this note is too late. These notes are both too late. So let me just nudge those back. Okay, I do want to record this part because it was just kind of messy. So I want to actually since I was just doing it off the top of my head, I messed up on a few of those notes. But I think I got the part that I wanted it to be. I want this note to be perfect. So let me, I didn't even move that. Dude, I don't want to bring me back my stuff. Yep. I just want to nudge that forward. And then what I can do is, yeah, which I'm pretty sure I want that take more. pretty sure I want take 2 more than take 3, take 1. But this is where the mistakes start happening, so I want to cut that out. And then see how they work, spliced together. So let's see, we have a question, not for subversiveasset, but for other people. Yes, I'm very interested in figuring out how you found this, since I'm not sure how many of you are subscribed, how many of you are not subscribed. There's not a lot of people in this chat. Let me actually tweet this out at some of my video game cover friends who probably aren't interested in this because they're like, Homestuck, what's Homestuck? Let me tell you about Homestuck. But they probably will be interested in watch me. Oh, it has my old title and thumbnail. That's kind of weird. Watch me edit music live. So exciting. Ignore thumbnail and title. Yeah, the thumbnail and the title should have related to Cobalt Thief, but for some reason, whenever I tweet it out, it doesn't quite work out. So I don't know what's up with that. Let me see. Did Twitter get it right this time? I don't want to talk about that right now. Dang it, now where is it going? Why did I do that? That was such a dumb move. Okay, of course, when I go to check it, it doesn't let me see what it is. Yeah, and it's still wrong. Okay, so whatever, no big deal. That's on YouTube. So back here, I am so glad that I'm ranking for Homestuck covers. I need to be doing a whole lot more of them, since they definitely get a lot of traffic. Even now, even after the series has ended, there's going to be an epilogue. It's going to be great. Yes, I recently was a finalist, a third place winner in Rashad EV's cover contest, so I'm glad that that has actually brought traffic. Awesome. This is going to be tricky because the note is simply, these notes are like way off and it starts to slow down. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to, this is advanced level cheating. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually overwrite the note and then see. What you can actually tell is you can actually tell that there's 2 parts of the note. There's an overlap. You can actually hear that. But it's just a matter of making sure that there's not too much of an overlap so that it's noticeable. So what I could do is, like, you see these overlapping lines? Like, I could play around with them till I get, you know, just the right thing. That sounds better. That sounds a lot better, I think. And then, like, pretty much the entire rest of the song, I think, is off track. So let me just go ahead and delete that, move that over, and then this is a little bit late, so I can just nudge this here. And this is going to be really annoying. If I don't get this right on, then with the glockenspiel, it's going to be very weird. Because the glockenspiel is basically doubling the part. So if it's not exactly on, it's going to just sound bad. So let me drag that over. And so here, that's not enough. It sounds weird. Something more like this. And then since it's a bit longer, and then I can use a stretch marker to reduce that without it sounding too weird. But I definitely want to make sure that everything is in time. Oh, I think I saw that comment. I usually try to read like every comment, but sometimes like I don't respond. I don't get to respond. So I need to go through all of my comments and see. I remember responding to someone who commented specifically about the storytelling. That's one of the things that I try to do, since I actually don't like recording myself a lot. So I usually do some sort of story with my videos. So in fact, if you like, and sometimes I get the stories are more or less elaborate. So for example, Air of Grief story is probably more elaborate. Carcat's theme is probably less elaborate. So it just kind of depends on what I'm feeling like. But in both of those, I don't think I actually record myself playing in either of those because, to be honest, I was just too lazy. So storytelling, A+. I'm gonna redo the beginning because I just want it to be, you know, a full note at that beginning. Oops. If only I knew how to begin a song. Okay, so let's see how those sound in comparison to one another. Let me do... So I don't like that last. That last note gets a little too breathy. I definitely prefer this version of the note up top, but I think I like that this initial beginning better. So I'm going to just splice in the beginning. What am I doing? Want to see is how do these both of these takes shape up against each other. My suspicion is there's going to be some issues. Like this note is a much better tone. One thing that I'm noticing now is that there are some major clashing somewhere. Sometimes those notes can just be a little finicky, so I'm glad I caught that. I'm gonna just delete that. That's just ugly. And I'm pretty sure that's a mistake. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that that's on time. I actually like this version a little bit better, but I like this version down here. I need to make sure that this is. Okay, so delete that. I don't care about that, but it's this part that I kind of need to think about. And just kind of go back here for a second. Harmonization is so beautiful, I might die. I am so glad that people like the harmonization. That's usually what I try to do with these musically. I try to add in at least another part so that I can just experiment with harmonies and chords a little bit. So I'm glad that that's something that people are liking. Let me just come here. This is a lot warmer. I think it's because I kind of moved, and so my sax wasn't placed in quite the same place. So it's a little warmer, whereas this is a little bit brighter, and I like the brighter sound here. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and just. Yeah. Way brighter. I like the brighter sound. So let me make sure then that everything is in alignment. So now that I redid the part, it starts at the beginning of the song, which is what I wanted. The second note is a little bit off, but the third note and the fourth note, they're good. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. And then I want to make sure that see, that's off. So I do want to fix that. So I want to make some stretch markers to reduce the sound, the length. And then this is probably going to distort things just a little bit. Yeah, that distorts things too much. So what I want to do instead is just cut, reduce, stretch. Here, definitely move that over. And then that is now a little bit too early. Too late, so I'm just going to cut off this tail, and then that should be good. And of course, like freaking clockwork. Oh yeah, candles and clockwork. I did that one, so check that out. That was a fun one. But like freaking clockwork, you know, making this on time means that this one is going to be inevitably off time. So let's just double check. This. That's way off. Hold on, let me just reduce that. And I don't want these key presses. So I'm actually just gonna, and there's another way I can get rid of the key presses, but I'm gonna clip them out. Here, I can use a stretch marker to just man, I was like feeling too slow. Should begin at 2.5. So that's way off. See, that should be at 2.5. I made things like really early then. Let me just answer a few comments. Homestuck is a comic, but it definitely breaks the boundaries of comics. So there's flash, as it was mentioned, there's flash segments, there's animations, there's interactive segments, there's a Tumblr kind of ripoff thing, there was an Instagram kind of ripoff thing. And there will be a video game. There will be an actual video game instead of just an interactive walk around. If you have not gotten on Homestuck, guys, you need to get on Homestuck. Don't read for spoilers. Just you need to start and anticipate that it's going to take you weeks and months to read, but it's going to be so much fun. It's an experience. I completely agree. It is an experience. It's like mostly a comic. It's mostly a comic / choose your own adventure that then became more of a story, but definitely it breaks the boundaries. Definitely fun. Let me get back here to see where things went off. Yeah, so that's definitely too soon. What measured that? 114. Everything is shifted by like 3 beats. So they should actually be, or 60. 60 is when the 114 changed. So instead of 60, it's 57. And it should begin on beat 2, which it actually is beginning on beat 2. It just starts late. Yeah, it should begin right on beat 2. So let me get rid of that silence. And because that glockenspiel is playing at exactly the same time, it's super important that the sax is in alignment there. Like some of the other times, it's like, it doesn't matter, but this is super important. That's another one. It should be 2.5, but it's significantly too soon. And here's another one where I'm going to do super cheating by just dragging that over. And here you can tell that there are different parts that need to be reduced in volume. So like the piano is probably too loud. The violin is probably too loud. And another thing is, all these so far are going straight to the master bus, but I usually like to go to reverb and then go to a different master bus. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, guys. Have you been hearing the other non-sax parts at all during this stream? I feel like I've made a horrific mistake. Okay, I'm so glad. Because what I was about to say, what I thought I did was, the way that I'm doing the stream is on this master bus right here, I have a plugin called Voxingo that goes to OBS. And so the fun thing about Voxingo is that because I put it here instead of like on the full master chain, you shouldn't be hearing the, you should not be hearing the metronome. Are you guys hearing the metronome? You also hearing the metronome? Because I think I have the setup where it goes through everything but this metronome, which is kind of like doesn't get sent anywhere. But if you guys were hearing all of this stuff, then you probably heard the metronome as well. Oh, no, not hearing the metronome. So somehow hearing all of this stuff, but not hearing the metronome. That's interesting. Anyways, but what I wanted to fix was I don't want anything sending to master except for this master and this reverb. So what I'm going to do is, instead of having it send directly to the master, I'm going to have it send to the reverb and have it send to track 2 master, which is not really the same master, and then get rid of the master send. And the same thing here, reverb, and then master, and then remove master send. This just gives me a little bit more flexibility in the effects that I want it to run. If it goes straight to the master, then it's kind of like I can't really do much with that. But if it goes to this master send, I can run plugins here and do interesting things. So I have, why do I have vibes still? I don't want vibes. Remove vibes, remove this bass because I'm not actually using these tracks. Save early and often, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save now. Super important. You don't want to do all this work and then have your computer crash. Re-record this part because I'm hearing distortion effects that are just not going to be able to get rid of those distortion effects. So I'm going to re-record these parts. So I know I definitely messed up on that one of these long notes. What I'm going to do is just go ahead. I already know I'm not going to use that part, but I'm going to do is this should be better. And then since whenever I do multiple times, I usually get a better sense of the rhythm afterwards. So you'll see that the second time, I was much better at getting most of these closer. Well, there are a few errors, of course, but it's much better. I'm not having to adjust every single note. So practice makes perfect, guys, if you really want to practice this. But what this means I can do is I can pretty much substitute most of these parts. And this one, since there's no stretching and all that kind of stuff, it should be a cleaner, a bit of a cleaner sound since it's not being distorted artificially. And then I want to do the same for these guys. Just move that up. Nudge that one back. And then I'm just going to compare. Part 2 has a bit more reverb that I like, or not reverb, vibrato that I like, so I'm gonna keep it and then delete part 1. And if I can do that, just move all this up. Here are a few sections that they aren't perfect on the beat, so since I want them to be very good, I'm just gonna nudge these over. Okay. Delete, move up. And then this was like notoriously just off, just bad. Just bad. Bad. You should be banned from every game. Okay, and then I can move those up. Oops, don't want to do anything there. Move those up. Check out a few things from the stream. Yeah, the screen should be a little bit in the past. There's actually kind of, what does it say? There's like a few features to make things kind of, I don't know how it works. YouTube is complicated. Consult a YouTube person. But yeah, if I'm typing, you should definitely see it in the comments a little bit after I press publish. The wonders of the internet. He makes music even when he speaks. I think that any singer would actually disagree with that. The sax, okay, so Piano Peka says shouldn't sax be louder? And that is true. What I do is I usually record the sax at much quieter than I need it to be, so that I don't have any noise from the outside. Like, I have a fan running and all that kind of stuff, so I probably shouldn't record with the fan on, but so sue me. And so what I do is afterwards, I do some manipulation of the sound. So what I did a while back was I reduced the sound of let me get rid of this guy. There's no contrabass, there's no bari sax either, so let me get rid of those. I reduced the sound of the piano by 3 dB, Glocks by 3 dB, violin by 3 dB, cello, I want it to be exactly where it is, and then the bowed bass, I want it to be exactly where it is. And I can keep on playing around with that, but that's where I have it so far. I know that sax 1 is not as loud as it needs to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a few extra effects. So first of all, there's a lot of like junk noise in here. For example, you can see here, junk. Let me do it. Actually, you can't really hear it. Well, I can see junk, so I don't want junk. So what I'm going to do is, I run a gate, and what this gate will do is it'll say anything below that certain threshold will not be audible. So let's say like 44. And the only thing that we have to make sure of is that there's nothing in the sax part that gets clipped off by that gate. So you see that everything here in the sax part is above 44, so it's safe. But if there's like these ends of these notes go below 44, it'll get clipped. See, this isn't a good enough gate because it's still putting in like the key noises and the breathing noises. So what I want to do is I want to make it go to 50. I think I want to make it go a little bit higher. I want it, if it goes to 40. So now anything that's below 40, like 35. And if you go too high, then you just start cutting part of it back. So check that out, guys. When I put it at like around 37, it completely removes kind of the breathing and the key noises here, but keeps that end of that note. And with it off, so I think I want to keep it. And sometimes like I want to keep a little bit of breathing noises just so that I know like it's a human doing it. So I think I'm going to actually keep it at around 40, which will keep some of the breathing noises, but not everything. And I want to do the same thing on sax 2, just run a gate. And I could do a run a gate on the entire bus because everything goes up into this bus, so I could do it all at once. But I usually like to do it a little bit differently because the pieces aren't always recorded exactly the same. So let me find a piece. So now there's silence there, which is what I want. Good deal. So then the next thing I want to do is I want to run a compressor. And what this is going to do is, I don't think I really need a compressor, but what a compressor does is it takes these high peaks here and it tries to normalize them with the rest of the song. So it says, after a certain threshold, compress it by a certain ratio. I probably don't want to compress it too much, but let's say that anything that goes above 20 dB should be compressed at a ratio of 2 to 1. So you see at that highest note here, it gets compressed by 0.1 dB and then 0.9 dB. So it just helps it be a little more uniform throughout the song. You can then do an auto makeup filter, so anything that you compress, you then raise the volume of the overall song to accommodate, but I don't really worry about that. So I want to do another compressor here, and I know that the sax 2 part is a little bit louder than it needs to be, so it's probably going to have more compression applied to it. I guess not. And then what I can do after that, and this is the fun part, is you can run a reverse gate. So gates normally are used to reduce the sound that's below a certain threshold, but what you can do is you can say increase the dry to 0 so that the full dry signal before the gate is applied. And what you could do is you can say anything above that threshold gets boosted. So the wet is added to the dry. So right there, that increases the sax 1, and it should also increase the sound of my voice because my voice is coming through sax 1. But I don't want to do that approach. So I'm going to turn that off, and you should hear my voice should have gotten quieter right there. Instead, what I want to do is something called saturation. So here I have my EQ, which I'm going to play with this EQ. You'll see this EQ says more like Carlos. So if you're a fan of Insane in the Rain music, I stole his EQ settings, basically. But then I edit them because I'm never happy with them. So Robin Hood East says, I feel like I like breathing noises because it makes it sound genuine. I actually do like it. When I add in the saturation, it's going to add back in some breathing noises, so I have to balance out those sorts of things. So for example, I'm just going to go back to here, and I'm going to add a compressor, Fab Filter Saturn, VST3, the latest. And what I do is, most people suggest like Morm tape. I do Morm tape at the end, but what I come and do is I do this crisp and mid-saturation, very saturator O, and immediately you should hear that there's more breathing and there's more, you can hear all of that stuff because my voice is going through this, and you can hear the fan in my room now. Hear that? That's the fan in my room, which is not a good thing. So that's why I want to have a gate also here, so that you don't hear that fan that just got lifted up by the saturation. So the first thing I do is I increase the first band so that there's no saturation applied to the bass. Because if I have too much low end on instruments that don't really need low end, then that just makes my mix muddy. Like if you hear my voice, you can see the waveform for it, and you can see that there is no bass. There should be no saturation on the bass of my voice. Now, some people, they'll purposefully lift up the bass of their voice so they sound more like, if you're hearing, satellite radio, all those people, they enhance the bass of their voice so they sound a little bit bassier than they should, but, I don't really like that. So check this out. The sound that I couldn't hear the first time can now be heard. Because when it gets saturated, it actually jumps above my gate threshold. So I need to make my gate threshold back down to 37. So in this case, I put it down to 35 so I could get rid of those. Now, since it's at the beginning of the song, I could have just done like this. I could have done that, but I wanted something that would apply for the entire song. You can hear here that there are a few errors with my gate. It's not a perfect solution. Like you can still hear some stuff peeking out through it. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to just say, I'm not going to mess with the gate anymore. I'm just going to delete that part. make sure, since there is a slowdown, I want to make sure that that slowdown is perfectly represented in the music, because currently it's not quite. Ah. Okay, I'm gonna try something. So at this point, when I'm just listening to it, I hear like great ideas that I didn't think about writing in the song. So I'm gonna just experiment. Just add that extra note in there. And then delete. Oops, no. What happens if I do that? Oh, so the reason you can still hear air is because I didn't put the gate on this second piece. So you're hearing the air not from this top piece, which it's already been removed, but from the second piece. Let me copy the selected one and then paste it right in there so it's the same effect happening. So now what you hear, and this is what I do for most of my vocal streams, I already have a gate that takes out the air and you just hear my voice. That's what I want. In fact, here it's a little too much. So let me do 45. Okay, so that should be better. Let's see. My strings VST is so good. My strings VST, talk to Danilo Cioffi from Pixel Mixer's Piano Peka about what we both think about our strings, because we both use orchestral companion strings, which there is a really great deal for it. Sonavox orchestral companion strings, really great deal for it a while back, where it was super cheap. But sometimes this can be such a buggy program. It just clips and it clicks in random places where you know that it's not supposed to. So I like it. It's very cheap, or it was. I don't know if it's still on a discount, but it's very processor heavy. So when it gets time to rendering this, I'm actually going to freeze all of these tracks that are using it, because it's very, I guess, processor heavy and the processor can't deal with it. Back here. Pexter McDoodson, you definitely do not need bass added to your voice. I agree. Not everyone can get on your level. Matt Damon Universe says, how and when did you first hear about Homestuck? When did you start reading? And what was your first impression of it? Let me think about this. I know I was not there during the beginning. I think that I first found out about it from a Metafilter discussion. There's a website called Metafilter, and they have these posts that are like every day about things that are kind of newsworthy. They'd like to say that they're the best of the web, I think. And so that was kind of the first place that I'd seen it. And the funny thing was, when I first did Homestuck, there's a part in the very beginning where you're in the main character's bedroom, and he has these different books on his shelf where you can read those. And I was like thinking, oh yeah, okay, I'll see how far it goes. And you know, one of them is Jailbreak Quest. I don't know what the official name for that. Prison Quest? One of those. And then another one is a piece called Problem Sleuth. And so I did not realize that this was a completely different comic. So while I was reading Homestuck, I completely went into Problem Sleuth, and I read the entire version of Problem Sleuth before even getting into Homestuck. So by the time I had gotten into Homestuck, they were definitely already in. I think that maybe it was in like the act, chapter, whatever, when the trolls were initiated. So yes, if you've read Problem Sleuth, then you have to read Homestuck because it's the same guy. So and it's even longer than Problem Sleuth and more of a cohesive kind of story. So definitely, what I really like about Homestuck, and this is something where maybe your mileage may vary, but the world building is incredible. There's like layers upon layers of symbols and in references and in jokes and things like that that will keep on coming back. Like there's always a reference to something. Like you won't even catch it the first time you're reading through, but if you read it through again, you're like, oh man, he made that joke, several hundred slides ago, and he just brought it back. So that's one thing I really like. And I wrote about this in my Air of Grief cover narrative. I like that there's the different aspects and the different classes, so it kind of puts a spin on the role-playing system element and classes kind of aspect. I'm not saying that I roleplay or anything, but it would be really fun to roleplay within the Homestuck system of kind of thinking about how does class spec interact with each other, that sort of thing. No, let me go back here. I don't need that anymore. So you hear this? It brings back the breath here, but then I have to decide, do I want that breath to be in there? And I'm like, maybe, but maybe I'll decide I don't want that breath in there. So I'll decide whether I want it or not. Okay, so that's pretty good. There's definitely some breath issues that are kind of like, I'm just going to decide if I want to keep those in or not. And now I kind of want to go to the EQ staging. So as I mentioned before, I use a default EQ based off of what Insane in the Rain music has. He, for some reason, does not like very bright sounding songs, so he kind of puts that there. Took me so long to figure out how to EQ because I couldn't hear what was going on. And then I found out about using this trick of exaggerating the EQ and then just kind of seeing what happens. Like, see here how my voice sounds really weird? That's a frequency that I would probably want to decide that I want to cut. And so I figured that out by exaggerating. And here is another frequency, that's really gross. So those two frequencies, now what I would want to do is I'd want to do that with the sax to see, particularly with the sax, if there's anything that sounds really gross like that. the same thing has to be done on like literally every instrument, because these VSTIs are not necessarily optimized for anything. So I have to make sure that there's no buildup of bass that is making my mix muddy. I don't expect a lot of bass to be picking up in this glockenspiel, but let's just see. Thanks so much, everyone. Side quests. I don't know if I have. Let me just search for this. This is probably not gonna like suck my life away, isn't it? Thanks so much for everyone who's can't, you know, who has to leave. Dang. Now I'm gonna have to read this. Okay, so I'm gonna have to check that out for later. This entire stream is going to be archived. So like if you missed out, what I wanna do is I wanna see if it's possible, because I believe that there's gonna be like 10 minutes of silence because I didn't figure out how to get the audio to correctly go, but I'm pretty sure that I can just put a timestamp saying skip on to like 10 minutes in or something like that. Hive Swap, I also cannot wait for Hive Swap. Whenever Hive Swap comes out, I'm gonna have to like cover lots of songs from the soundtrack, because it'll be a new thing. The Homestuck fan base is gonna be revitalized. It's gonna be so much traffic. It's gonna be so terrific. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check out side quests as well. Let me just kind of go through a few more things here. Now that I think I've gotten the EQing now, so as Piano Pick has said, the breathing is a little bit too much. So I'm going to come over to where that breathing was, wherever it was. Never going to be able to find it, am I? Where was it? It was like very visible. I remember it being very visible. And now I can't find it. Oh, here we go. So what I can do here, my next tool is there's automation for each track. So I can set the volume as a whole here, but I can also set the volume pre-effects here. And what I do is I normally go to something like Bezier, I think that's how you pronounce it, and then I just reduce that out, and I can And so here, for example, this part is longer than the other one. So what I want to do is but I want it to be a lot more gradual. So this one, I want to set it to be fast end. Oh, that's too much. Oh, it wasn't this one that needed to be changed at all. It was this one in sax 2. Sorry. Find pre-effect and do fast end. There we go. Yeah, that's gross. At the end here, let me just remove the end and here. Okay, so then what I would normally do at this point, I mean, I'm gonna ask for feedback on the EQing because to me, I'm like, oh, this sounds okay, but I would normally go and ask several people, how does this sound to you? Can you provide feedback? Because every time, inevitably, someone will say, oh no, you know, this is supposed to be this way, and then I'll do it and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's right. But I don't necessarily have the ear to get everything perfect on my own. What I'm gonna do instead is here I have a default reverb. Ambience is a kind of is actually another thing that I stole from Insane in the Rain music. And I even stole like the same J-ring warm and the same settings from a video that he did on recording and mixing for saxophone. But over time, I realized that we are two different people. He is a person with a lot more subscribers than I have, but we are still two different people. So what I did instead was I use this as kind of the default in my template so that when I'm hearing it, there's a reverb there, but then I add in other reverbs. So I'm also using another free one, reverb. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off ambience. So right then you should have heard that my voice now has no reverb and everything else has no reverb. So first of all, I want to play to you how horrible everything sounds without reverb. Reverb makes everything gel together. When you don't have reverb, it sounds horrible. just horrible. Absolutely terrible. Everything needs reverb. So the first thing I want to do is, because the reverb is its own bus and everything is being sent to the reverb, I want to turn the dry down to off. The dry parts of the song are going to come from the tracks themselves, but the wet is only going to be reverb. And then I usually start by turning the wet down to around -18. And if you see here, there's actually a -14 here. You really don't need that much reverb. You just need enough that it's, enough. So then I have lots of reverbs here. So what I usually pick is a chamber. For classical music, I usually like to be in a chamber, or I usually like to be into a hall. And depending on just how reverberant, I might pick a big hall. But I've been doing the chambers, and I usually like a chamber that will reinforce the darkness or the brightness. So I'm actually just gonna do a medium chamber for now. It's not super critical. And what you see is there is lag. That's kind of gross. Let me turn that off. But what I want to do is I want to set things up so, like, I don't want the reverb to be impacting all the stuff that is how do I say it? I don't want the reverb to be boosting the bass. That will make things muddy. And then if I come to trim gain, then I can again set the gain here a little bit more, so I can say not enough, not too much reverb. And I can also set pre-silence, which says play the original part for a little bit and then come in with the reverb. That can make things a little bit clearer. Let me try it with the reverb, and hopefully it doesn't get too echoey. Okay, I can do better than this.
Okay, testing.
Feel like this is probably as far as I can go in this stream, because this reverb is such an intensive plugin that as soon as I put it on, everything is going to be just too echoey to really be useful. So thanks, Piano Pekka. Thanks for joining, Pexter. Thanks for also being here. And yeah, I agree. Chamber Hall, generally what I want to use. There are a few things that I'll do on a track-by-track basis. So for example, if I want something that's really immediate, another thing I could have done, for example, with this alto is I bid FabFilter Saturn here. But what I could have done is I could have done a very close reverb. And so let me actually see if I can do that here. Just run, and I do want the dry here, and I want the wet to be a little bit louder, but whatever. And then I can do an ambience, which is usually pretty short. And I can just do like a small, dark ambience. So it's very short.
Very short.
It still has
It has an echo
because I don't know. But it's very
short.
And I still want to remove the bass out of that. Now, when you have an ambience like that, then it really changes the EQ mix, so you don't have to re-EQ. This is so annoying. I'm going to turn that off. Okay, so I'll experiment with that when I'm not hearing record monitoring here, which is totally trips me up because of the delay. So I think that is probably as far as I'm going to get with this stream. It's been going on for around 2 hours. So thanks everyone for joining along. This piece probably should be going to you sometime this week, probably the weekend. That's when I usually try to release stuff. If you like this, then please check out some of my other pieces. I should have a playlist of Homestuck songs. If I don't, then I need to make that playlist, because I definitely have other Homestuck covers. And of course, if you're a fan of video games, then I do video game cover music as well. This will be archived, so tell your friends if they're interested in mixing and they want to hear how someone else does it. I'm probably not the best person to ask, but I mean, they can give some ideas on thoughts that you might want to have. So I'm going to end this stream and let y'all get to the rest of y'all's evening. And I'm going to finish the reverb and re-EQing with the reverb and all that kind of stuff. So bye.